Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Imagine 25 DBE. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough like you would get from a technician on the date of delivery, going through all of the components on here, showing you how they work, giving you some tips and tricks along the way. If your unit varies in brand name for some of these components, or you want a deeper dive on these or more, you can find that information on our Great American RV YouTube channel under the playlist Haps Helpful Hacks. We'll start in the front here. We have our 7-way plug. It's going to transfer all of your turn signals, your lights, all that stuff over to the camper, as well as a 12-volt charge line off of your alternator to charge your battery while your engine is running. We're also going to have our brake control wire off of our brake controller of the towed vehicle going through here to activate the brakes on our trailer. Speaking of the brakes, we're going to have this lanyard right here that is hooked to our breakaway box down there at the bottom. This is to be hooked onto the receiver hitch itself, where you would hook your safety chains up. You want to loop it in there. That way, if anything ever happens to the hitch or chains or anything and this pulls off, this pin will get pulled out of that breakaway box and activate your brakes on your trailer to bring you to a safe stop. Now, in order for that to happen, you do have to have a good 12-volt battery on your unit that's charged up to be able to have power to apply to the brakes. If not, that unit will not come to a stop whenever it disconnects for that safety. Now, beyond that, we want to make sure that that pin is inserted into that box anytime, into that box at all times. If it is not, it will be activating those brakes when you don't want them to. Beyond that, we have our 12-volt power jack right here, up, down, got a light on it. You have a wire that comes down over to your battery. You're generally going to have an inline fuse on that system. Now, if your jack doesn't work, you want to check that 12-volt battery, make sure that you do have voltage on it. You also want to check that inline fuse, make sure it's not blown. And if you can't figure it out, we do have a black cap on here. You can pop that off, put a crank handle in here, and crank that jack up and down to get you out of a jam. Now, behind that, we have our 2 propane tanks operated by our dual propane regulator. That dual propane regulator has a selector switch on it. You choose which tank you want to be your primary. You have both tanks open and on, and that primary tank will read on the gauge whether it is full or empty. You will use that primary tank until it runs out, and it will automatically swap over to the secondary tank. The gauge will still read off the primary until you change that selector switch over to that secondary tank, and then it will read off of that one, at which point you can get that other tank refilled or exchanged out. Behind our propane tanks, we have our battery storage center where we keep our battery for our system. Moving over to our driver's side, we have storage right here, our pass-through compartment. Our door gives us access to that. We also have a light switch right here for our interior lights for here, and there is a motion sensor on there, so you can keep those lights on all the time. You can close this door, lights will turn off, open it up, they'll kick back on. We also have our Furion solar controller in there that's going to convert our solar power to charging power for our battery. Now, that system is in here. Your unit may or may not come with it, or it may come with that, not solar panels. You can check and see what your system has in particular. Beyond that, in here we have our control center with all of our hookups for our water, as well as our battery and solar disconnects. We'll go over a closer look at that right now. So we can see we have a number of components in this front compartment. Up top here we have our solar disconnect. That solar disconnect is going to shut off that solar system. So in the event we don't want to operate that, we can just turn that off. If we are parked and we want to utilize that solar, then we want to make sure that that is on. Below that, down at the bottom here, is our actual battery disconnect. That one is going to disconnect our battery from the system. So if we park our unit and we're not plugged in and we're storing our unit, then generally you're going to want to turn this off so the lights, so on and so forth, isn't pulling off of that battery, and we still have some charge left whenever we are ready to pick our unit back up. Now, if we turn this off, it will not affect that solar. So if you want to keep the solar on and use that to help charge that battery while it's disconnected, you can still do that. If you are plugged in anywhere, camping, storage, anything like that, you want that battery disconnect on so that charging system can charge your battery while it's plugged in. This switch right here is for the underglow under your unit. You have a couple spots, you'll see a little blue light pop up onto there. Here we have a 110 outlet that is GFCI protected. We'll talk a little bit more about GFCI whenever we get to the inside of the unit. Up here we have our coax ports for satellite cable and auxiliary if there's something else that we want to plug in there. These ports will all lead to ports inside the unit wherever there is a TV. Here we have our city water connection. This is where we would hook up if we do have a hose bib at the campground where we're at, or we're at our house. Run that hose to it, turn the water on, and then we will have water at all of our faucets. Right here we have our tank fill or city option. So if we're using that city option, we have to have this valve turned down to go to our faucets. If we want to fill up our freshwater tank, which is our onboard storage, then we want to go ahead and turn that valve to the tank fill and then fill it up. We can monitor that by our meter on the inside we'll get to in a little while. So once we are done, we can go ahead and kick it back over to city. We'll utilize that water in that tank by using our 12-volt water pump. Below that is a quick connect for our coil hose system. We can go ahead and hook that in there, and then we have a spray port right here on the side. Below our storage center, we have our stabilizer jack down here. This is a manual stabilizer jack. You're gonna have one on all four corners. It is very important that we understand stabilizer jack, not leveling jack. This does have a weight rating on it, and it's much less of the weight of the camper. So when we put these down, we wanna make sure we're just putting a portion of the weight on there, just enough to have some tension on that jack. We don't want to have them straight up and down with all kind of weight and try to level our unit with them. They will bend and break at the welds or break the worm gear assembly on here. Manufacturers do not participate in changing that out due to misuse. So keep that in mind. When we level our unit, in order to level our unit, I should say, we want to use leveling blocks. Those stacker blocks that you can purchase at our camping store. Want to stick those under our tires whenever we're backing up to adjust it left to right if that pad is uneven, and we use our jack in the front to adjust it from front to back. We can also use those stacker blocks under our stabilizer jacks right here. The idea is we want to keep those in a diamond shaped form. That is where they are most effective and efficient to help reduce movement in our unit. So put those stacker blocks under there, crank down that system, and like I said, just put a little bit of weight on it to have some tension, and it'll help reduce the movement that you feel inside that unit. Just before we get to our slide out, we do have a gray tank system right here. This is our secondary gray tank. We have our valve right there on the side. We'll talk a little bit more about the dump and how we use that when we get to our rear one. We'll also notice a hole in our J-wrap. If you look through there, there is a bolt coming out of the frame. That is to be able to drop down our spare tire in the event that we ever need it. We take that crate handle, put it in there, and we can drop it down. Our slide out is a Schwintek slide on this side. It is operated by 12 volts. There are motors in each column. It's identified by our worm gear system here on the bottom and the top. We do have a couple of videos on that Schwintek system that go into a deeper dive you can find in our helpful hacks section. All right, so we're at our dump station here in the rear. As we said, we have that gray tank in the front. So we have two gray tank systems. The other one is right here, that gray tank valve there, that black tank valve there. So your gray tanks are all shower and sink water. No big solid deposits or anything unless you put it down the kitchen sink. So it's mainly just water. If you have your hose connection, which is what this port here is for, you hook your hose up, you have your sewer connection at the campground, you can leave that gray tank open all the time. If you have to wait till you get to the dump station to dump, of course you need it closed. But that water can flow out there all the time from your showers, so on and so forth, so you don't have to keep coming out here and emptying it after a few showers. Now, the thing about our black tank, that is coming from our toilet. So we're talking about sewage, solids, toilet paper, all that stuff. We want to make sure water stays in that tank. If it doesn't, we'll get what's called dry tank, where all the deposits in there dry up. So the idea is we need to keep that valve closed until we are ready to dump and clean out that system. So we'll go through the process now. We have our hose hooked up, we pull that valve, we let everything dump out of there. Once we are ready, we can go ahead and hook a hose up to our black tank flush fitting right up here up top, and then we can turn it on. There's a jet on the other side of that tank that's going to help push any solids or debris that might still be in there out to this valve and help flush out that system. When you're satisfied with that, you can disconnect that black tank flush, and we can come over here and close our valve. Once we have closed our valve, we need to go inside to the toilet, hold down the pedal, and put several gallons of fresh, clean water in our black tank. This will help clean out that system as you're traveling down the road. We also need to add our chemicals in there, and it's also going to help degrade anything that might still be left in that tank and keep it smelling nice. If you want a pro tip, a little bit more work, but it is going to make that tank a lot cleaner, you can go find that under our HAPS Helpful Hacks section on YouTube under Black Tank Flush. Here on the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for our Furrion backup camera system. When we turn our running lights on our towing vehicle, that system will have power, and it will go ahead and power up that camera to see behind you when you're backing up or while you're traveling down the road. We do have our factory supply ladder right here to gain access to our roof. This is important because we need to check the sealants on our roof every 60 to 90 days. 60 to 90 days, and we also need to check our sealants around everything on our sidewalls, our trim, our ladders, our lights, all that stuff. We need to check the sealant on there. We need to check all of it for any peeling, degrading, cracks, anything of that nature. Clean it, reseal it if necessary to prevent any water from intruding into our camper. Out of the first 90 days, manufacturers don't participate into any water leaks in the event that the customer is not maintaining their unit properly. And this can happen overnight, so please make sure we're checking that kind of stuff regularly and maintaining our unit just like we're changing the oil in our car, maintaining our camper so it'll last for years to come. We also need to gain access to our roof to check it after trips to make sure there are no low-lying tree limbs poked any holes in our rubber, anything like that, tore anything up, allowing water into that as well. We also need to clean that roof once or twice a year to maintain that rubber. Also on the rear, we have that 30-amp power supply right here. It's a twist lock plug. Put it in, turn it to the right, lock it in. You're gonna have a little retainer ring on there. It's a good idea to tighten that up. That way kids are running around and stuff, they don't pull that cord out of the camper. Once we have it plugged in and tightened up right here, then we plug it into our shore power at the campground. This helps prevent any arcing or anything on this plug right here. And then we also want to make sure that our AC systems are off so we don't cause any surges to our compressor when we plug in and unplug from that pedestal. Down at the bottom out there, you'll see that red and blue line sticking out. Those are our low point drains. That is made for whenever we need to winterize our unit. We'll open those up and drain out our system. If you want more information on winterization, you can find that in your owner's manual, or we have a video for that too on Hap's Helpful Hacks. Down here you have that receiver hitch. That receiver hitch is not meant for towing a trailer, a boat, golf cart, anything of that nature. It's for a bike rack or an extra rack you want to put back here for more storage. You can certainly do that. Of course, mind the weight rating on that sticker. Over here we have our Suburban furnace that is gas powered. You're also going to need 12 volts to operate it. We'll go over that information on the inside, as well as our Furrion tankless water heater that's going to give you endless hot water on that system. Also 12 volt and gas powered. That control panel is on the inside. We'll go over the operation of that when we get there. Moving to our passenger side, we can see further down near that control center on the other side, we are prepped for an inverter. And the inverter changes 12 volts to 110. In the event we are boondocking, we don't have a place to plug in. If you have the right setup for your battery system, you have solar charging, you can actually operate off that battery system to operate some of the small appliances in your unit, converting that 12 volt power to 110. Besides that, we have access from this side. Of course, we'll need to see another stabilizer jack there at the bottom to be able to stabilize our unit. Now, as we move on, we do see our 12 volt powered awning as well as our 12 volt powered lights. Any 12 volt power components are all controlled off of that battery system. We do have fuses on the inside. We'll show you that you would go to in the event that some of that stuff isn't working. You want to check those fuses and make sure they're not blown. Our awning is particularly a sunshade. You're going to get a little bit of light rain, dew, AC condensation, all that kind of stuff on that awning, and that's okay. The idea that we need to keep in mind is we have to tilt our awning either to the front or the back. Really easy, both the front arm and rear arm are the same way. We grab it at this pivot point right here and we just pull it down. Once we pull it down, that awning is now pitched to the front. Any rain, light rain, AC condensation, anything like that can go ahead and run off that awning. We don't want it to pool over the awning and allow that thing to collapse, causing safety hazard for anybody that's under it. We're ready to roll that awning in. Just go ahead and push this up and we can roll our awning in and store it. Now for our awning, if we got a bad rainstorm coming in, windstorm, anything like that, leaving our camper for an extended period of time, roll the awning in. Please be cautious because this can get damaged fairly easily. If a bad storm comes in, it becomes a parachute, right? You don't want that insurance claim, you don't want that expense. When in doubt, roll that awning in. On both of our entry doors, you're gonna notice a friction controlled hinges on there, so you're gonna see some resistance on that door. That's with the intent so the wind won't blow and slam that door closed. You do have a latch on that front door, that way it'll keep it still from banging against that awning door. Our front steps are pretty easy to operate. We just flip them up, store them there, fold them out to bring them back down. Now, as for our other door, same thing, friction controlled hinges on that door, but we do have our solid step system here. That solid step system is very nice and convenient and easy to store. We just flip it up, We go ahead and pop it in there. Might have to pull that little blue latch to make sure it goes around that frame. Give it a tug. You're ready to go ahead and close your door and hit the road. Ready to pull it down, we want to make sure that when we put it up and pull it down, that's open all the way. That way the screen doesn't get torn up whenever you're putting those steps up and down. Ready to pull it down, pull that little blue lever right there, and we can go ahead and flip them down. Now it's very important, after we level out our unit from left to right, front to back, we then need to level out our steps. We can do that with a little silver tab on each side. We push that in and we can extend and retract those legs in order to get it level on our surface. Now we have level steps. We also do that. That way we can have good solid threshold right here that's flat. That way this entry door will close properly and seal properly. But we also want to make sure that our frame of our door isn't hitting the frame of our steps, causing any damage there. Next to our entry doors, we also have our tank fill right here for our fresh tank. We had talked about the option over there by our control center. We can do it from a city water connection there, pressurized, or we can do a gravity fill. We come over here, pull that cap off, stick our water hose in there, and fill that tank system. Now that tank system is going to add extra weight to your unit when you're carrying that water, and if you keep it in there for an extended period of time, that water is going to become stagnant. So the question is, how do I get it out, right? So below there, we have this white valve right here. We pull that white valve and that will dump that system. Only take with you what you need. If you know you're not going to need that much, maybe you're just using it during travel to be able to utilize the bathroom and stuff at a rest stop, just put a little bit of water in there. You'll kick your water pump on and supply it to those fixtures, and that'll save you some weight and get you a little bit better gas mileage. Here we have our 110 outlet and our outdoor cable system right here for our outdoor TV. All of our 110 outlets outside are GFCI protected, as well as in our kitchen. It's going to be important whenever we go to the inside. We'll show you where that main GFCI outlet is in the event that these aren't working. It's generally due to overcurrent. We have too many griddles, coffee pots, so on and so forth plugged in at one time, or those outlets are wet. So we want to check that system before we go to reset it, and then reset it, maybe plug those items in one at a time. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the inside. Before we hit the inside of our unit, if we look down here, we do have a little pipe we can open and close, store our sewer hose in there, and we have our outdoor kitchen. Our outdoor kitchen does have a 110 operated dorm fridge in there. Keep in mind, anytime we plug our unit in, that fridge is going to be powered up. It's going to do what a fridge does. It's going to cool, it's going to freeze, right? So anytime we unplug our unit, it's going to wet. It's going to defrost. We're going to have condensation in there. We need to wipe that out. We need to get the freezing water defrosted and cleaned out of there. Otherwise, that water is going to leak out and it's going to damage our wood components around our fridge. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in that. Customer maintenance to go ahead and clean, defrost that fridge are also going to help reduce mold and mildew in there as well. Now here we have our outdoor griddle. We go ahead and just pull that out. We do have a little shield right there, storage tray, and we have our griddle. Now on our griddle, we do have a propane line. We'll pull that out. We can see on there we do have a male connection for a quick connect on there. If we look under our unit, we do have the female connection right there with a little valve. We need to make sure that valve is closed in order for this quick connect to go in there, and then we open it up for the flow to start. You cannot disconnect this without that valve being closed, as well as reconnect it. In order to put this back, just shove that LP line back up in the hole so it won't get snagged when we're putting that in. Close that up, close it, and store it. Now over to the left of that, we do have another spray port quick connect right here. That is for that blue coiled hose like we had in the front, that we can use for another wash option right by the griddle. As we walk to the inside, we'll see our control center right here. This control center can be operated from your phone. You download that Compass Connect app, then you can go ahead and scan this QR code, put in your password information, all that stuff, and control a lot of these items from your phone. Now here we'll have our tanks and everything. This is our fresh tank, black tank, gray tank 2, as well as our battery. It will give you the full and empty level of all those systems. This Bluetooth connect button right here is for that Leopard 1 Control app. In order to be able to operate that, we have our ceiling lights, our exterior lights, which is our awning lights, and our 12-volt water pump. A 12-volt water pump is used to pull out of our fresh tank system. In the event that we don't have that city water connection, we'll use the onboard water. And when it runs out, that pump will run all the time. We need to shut that off when that system's empty. This is an on-demand pump, so it's only going to come on whenever you're using water. So if we notice that pump is running and we're not using any water, we might have a leak in our system, or our system is empty. We need to go ahead and shut that off so we don't burn up that pump. Down below we have our awning and slide outs for in and out, that option there. We also have a switch up here up top. If we turn that on, we can go ahead and operate our dimmer for our ceiling lights. Once again, all 12-volt operated. We'll go to that fuse panel in the event something's not working and check there first to see if there's any issues with those fuses. In our kitchen, we do have our 110 microwave, our hood vent for our stovetop. The vent we talked about outside needs to be open whenever you turn this on in order for that air to circulate. Closed whenever you store it, keep insects from building up. That's what that's for. We have our 3-burner stove right here. This stovetop does have a glass cover. That glass cover is for more counter space. You don't cook on it. When you're in travel, you want that down as well so the glass doesn't fall and break. We're ready to cook. We go ahead and flip it up. We have our 3 burners right there. We make sure our propane is on. Turn it to the flame icon and we crank up that igniter until it lights. Now with our propane systems, air can build up in those lines. If you've pulled your unit out of storage and you have those propane tanks off, which is very common to do, you're going to end up with air in your system. Or if you changed out your tanks, you're going to end up with air in your system. In order to bleed that air out, you just come over here and light your stovetop. It's going to take a little bit longer once you turn your propane tanks on, a little bit longer to light rather than just right away after you bled it out. So come do that before you operate things like your water heater or your furnace, and it'll help reduce faults that can happen in those systems due to simply having air in the line. Now you don't have to do this every single time you go to light your stove or operate that stuff, only whenever you have first turned on your tanks from storage or you replaced one of your tanks will you end up with air in the system. Now past that, we do have our oven down here at the bottom. In order to operate that, we'll go ahead and turn our oven knob right here to the pilot light position. We have to hold that knob down in order for the gas to emit out of that pilot. We manually crank this until that pilot lights, let it run for about 30 seconds, and then turn to our desired temperature. Once it's done that, then the burner tube should light up. If it goes out right away, just go ahead and kick it back on, hold it for a little bit longer, and then try to relight it. Now this one will still take a little bit longer after you bled out the air out of your system in order for it to light. Just be patient whenever you're operating that. You will notice that all those knobs turn red. It's a little safety feature letting you know that gas is being emitted out of that system. We have a little light switch right there. Flip it up, they all turn blue. Flip it down, they turn blue, and open up your oven. But they'll also still turn red whenever gas is being emitted out of that system, so it's good if you have kids that like playing with stuff. Not too much to go over in our bedroom. Of course, we have storage under our bed. We have our Furrion thermostat for our AC and heat right here in the corner. We're going to go over that real quick, and then after that we'll take a look at our 12-volt 110 control center. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We of course set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point, and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Up here you'll see your ceiling assembly for that Furrion AC controlled by our thermostat in the bedroom. We'll notice that we do have a return vent right here with a filter. That filter needs to be cleaned every now and again. Make sure we're not reducing airflow to our AC and it can work efficiently. Other thing you're going to notice on here is a dump vent. If you open that vent, we're going to have more air flowing out of here. Now that's to quickly cool off this area here. When we close it off, now it is going to flow through our ducts in our ceiling, and that is how it's going to spread throughout the entire unit. Now keep in mind, this is only going to put out the cool air. Your furnace is going to put out the warm air, and that's going to come out of those vents that are down low. So we can see right by our entry door in our bedroom, we have our 110 breakers and 12-volt fuses for all of our components and our appliances. All of them are labeled so you see what they operate, and we can go there if we have any issues. Now you are going to hear a little fan running behind here. That is our converter system. A converter changes 110 power to 12 volts, so it's essentially a battery charger. And we are going to hear that running whenever we are plugged into shore power. That means that battery system is operating and charging the battery in the front. In our slide out, we're going to have our 12-volt Furrion refrigerator. Open it up. We also have our freezer. Down here in the bottom box, we're going to notice a little control knob. We can turn that system completely off, or we can go ahead and go from cold to colder. And we also have an off-grid option. Off-grid option is for if we are boondocking, we're trying to conserve the amount of power we're using off of that 12-volt battery. That compressor will not work as hard to keep this stuff cold. Whenever you use that option, you need to keep in mind you don't want to open and close that refrigerator too often because that compressor isn't working as much as it would normally. Now on this system, just like our outdoor fridge, there's no drain tubes for this system. So we need to make sure that when we defrost it, we shut it down to store it. We need to get all that water out to reduce mold and mildew and reduce opportunity for water to leak out and damage our wood around it. Have our pantry right here, which is nice, and then we also have our dinette booth. Dinette booth has a telescopic leg there at the bottom to be able to drop this down. You can take your cushions and add more sleeping area. In order to operate, you just grab one of those levers, pull it down, pull it open, and then we go push that table down. We'll go ahead and open up both of them in order to drop it down enough. When it gets to the position we want, we just go ahead and lock it back in. For our recliners, they do have the massaging heated and light seats on here, the manual recline right there. And we also have our COLP detector down here at the bottom. Notice the little green light on there that's glowing. That lets you know that that system is powered up. It's a 12-volt system wired into your battery system to be able to make sure that it has power to let you know if there's any cautious gases in your unit. We need to hit that test button on there before we go camping. Make sure that system is operating to keep you safe, and it does have an expiration date on it as well. We want to make sure that we keep up with that. It either be on the front or the rear of that CO detector, and we want to replace that whenever that time comes. We're also going to have smoke detectors in our unit. We need to make sure that those are powered up properly. It's going to be powered by that 9-volt battery, and we need to change that out every now and again to make sure we have good power and test those as well. Here in our bathroom, fairly cut and dry. We do have our shower, hot and cold. One thing about an RV shower is on your shower head, you do have that on-off option on the shower head. That's used for if we are dry camping, we're trying to conserve the amount of water we're putting in our gray tank as well as using out of our fresh tank. We can go ahead and easily just turn that shower head off rather than messing with our hot cold, trying to find that sweet spot for the temperature of the water again. Do that in between rinsing and lathering up. So it's your option. You want to use it that way, you can. Of course, if you have a city water connection and a dump station, you can use it just like you would at home and not have to worry about turning it off. Our toilet, standard toilet, we have a push pedal down here at the bottom that's going to go ahead and flush down that system. Anytime we use our toilet, we're putting number 1 and number 2 in there, so liquids and solids. For you doing liquids, we just hit that pedal, flush it, no problem. Solids, we need to fill that bowl from half to 3/4 away, something like that, by barely just pushing that pedal down a little bit, and that bowl will begin to fill up with water. That's to help make sure that we have enough water to flush that system down with those solids and make it down to our black tank with no issues with clogging. Now this system is only meant for that sewage, number 1, number 2, RV toilet paper only, to make sure that it degrades properly, and our RV tank chemicals. So only put those items in there and nothing else. It will clog the tanks, get stuck in the valves, and it can be an expensive repair. So do that the right way. You won't have any issues with it. And here we also have our Furrion tankless water heater system. We'll go over the operation of that now. In our bathroom, we'll see our Furrion tankless control center. Pretty simple. We have our power on, off and on, kick it on. That's going to be our set point for our water. We can change that by hitting our up and down buttons right there. Our indicators right here, power, Fahrenheit, Celsius. If we want to change one or the other, we hit that bottom right button. And flame. Flame is only going to kick on whenever we turn that hot water on, indicating that system is working. And once again, on demand, it'll only come on whenever we have that hot water on. One more thing to add for our shower, we do have our vent up here. When we take a shower, it's recommended you open that vent and ventilate any steam and stuff out of here and reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew to occur. Last thing is our GFCI outlet. We talked about that in all of our wet locations. You're going to notice on that outlet 2 buttons and a green light. Those 2 buttons, one is a test button, one is a reset button, and the light lets you know that it's on. The test button will simply just trip that outlet. None of those outlets will work. Reset button, hit it, and it resets the system. So like I said earlier, if any of those outlets aren't working, you come over here, reset it. If it trips right away, unplug some of the appliances that you have plugged in, and go look and make sure none of those outlets are wet. So once you've done that, go and reset that system and see if it doesn't come back to life.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.